The movie begins when a 5-year-old boy named Vasily Zaytsev aims his sniper at the wolf from a distance. His grandfather whisperingly orders him to remain calm and take his time to shoot at the wolf rushing towards the white horse. Vasily hesitates to pull the trigger, then his grandfather pressures him to shoot. Many years later, Vasily is a full-grown man and a soldier in the Red Army. On September 20, 1942, the Red Army, including Vasily, departed on a train to Stalingrad. As they arrive at a port, Russian commanding officers force them to exit the train and ride the boat. As the boat departs, a Russian commanding officer loudly reads a letter to the Russian soldiers. Then, the boat receives casualties from Nazi aircraft shooting at them. As Nazi aircraft continued to attack them, numerous Russian soldiers jumped off the boat to escape the attack. The Russian commanding officers furiously stop anyone from jumping off the boat, and those who jump are shot remorselessly. As the remaining Russian soldiers arrive at Stalingrad's landing area, they are surprised by numerous dead soldiers on the ground. The Russian soldiers await their turn to obtain weapons. However, a Russian commanding officer only distributes one rifle to 2 people. If the one holding the gun dies, the remaining soldier will pick it up and attack the Nazis. Unfortunately, Vasily only obtains bullets without a rifle to use in the battle. So he must take cover and wait for his comrade to fall dead. In the devastated battlefield of Stalingrad, the Russian soldiers alertly stand their position. Then, they commence an attack on the Nazis. The Nazis readily shot them using their heavy artillery, machine guns, and tanks. Worst, the Nazis are also prepared with military aircraft to launch missiles at them any time. Instantly, numerous Russian soldiers fell dead and were injured. Hundreds of Russian soldiers retreat unprepared but get shot by their commanding officers for being cowardly. Mercilessly, bloodshed among soldiers occurs due to not following their rule: no retreat, not a step back. As the battlefield covered in smoke becomes silent, Commissar Danilov bravely drives into the bombarded area. The Nazis shoot his vehicle multiple times until it flips and tons of newspaper scatter on the ground. As he exits his vehicle, he crawls into the dirt and hides amongst the dead bodies to disguise himself as one. The Nazis shoot at the dead bodies to ensure no one is alive. Luckily, Danilov survives and coincidentally sees Vasily hiding beside him. Later, Danilov aims his rifle at the Nazi officer from a distance. Vasily stops him as he may put them both in danger. So, Vasily approaches him and takes the gun to do the firing. Consecutively, he perfectly shoots the 5 Nazis nearby. Surprised by his skills, Danilov expresses gratitude towards him. Afterward, Danilov produces newspapers with Vasily's bravery written on it. The newspaper will be published to the public and will recognize Vasily from then on. Vasily is filled with gratitude towards Danilov's generosity. 2 days later, in Russian headquarters, Nikita Khrushchev, secretary of the Soviet Communist Party, demanded the political officers do their job to no longer fail the second time. He orders that they must brainstorm how not to make the Red Army depict cowardly soldiers. Danilov, in the room, suggests that the people need an heroic example to follow. Of course, Vasily is in his mind. Khrushchev accepts his suggestions. Soon after, Danilov begins publishing Vasily's heroic stories to give hope to other Russian soldiers. Then, Vasily receives the news from him of his immediate transfer to the sniper division. They both rejoice in their new beginnings and friendship. Sometime later, Vasily's name becomes famous all over Europe. He gains a lot of followers, including the Russian child named Sasha. Sasha brings him to his underground house. Mrs. Filipov, Sasha's mother, welcomes him wholeheartedly. After a while, Danilov arrives at Sasha's house to meet Vasily. He delivers hundreds of letters sent to him by his supporters all over Russia. Vasily is writing down his reply to the letters when Tanya, a member of the local militia and Sasha's neighbor, arrives. Vasily and Danilov are stunned by her beauty. Then, both simply take a glimpse of her while they're busy composing words for their reply to the letters. Meanwhile, Danilov asks for Tanya's help as he discovers she knows the German language. He desires to use Tanya's skill to translate radio intercepts from Germans. Tanya refuses as she desires to stay in their local militia due to the shortage of soldiers. But Danilov insisted that she change her mind. Fast forward to October 21st in Nazi headquarters. German Major Erwin Konig, a well-known Nazi sniper, arrives to take on a mission. His mission is to take down Vasily, for he has been targeting lots of Nazis each day. After some time, Vasily is sent to the battlefield to spot a Nazi sniper from a distant building. Swiftly, he has taken down the Nazi sniper, and his comrades carefully collect the Nazi dog tag. Then, Vasily and his comrade Lyudmila proceed to the devastated building to search for Nazis to attack. Afterward, they notice mannequins dressed as Nazis to lure them. Realizing it's a trap, Vasily orders Lyudmila to remain calm and not move an inch. However, the Nazi aircraft starts to launch missiles at the battlefield, including the devastated building they're in. Ludmilla weeps in panic as she believes she'll die once their position gets hit by a missile. Afraid, Ludmilla runs off and gets shot by Konig in the head. Vasily screams. Disappointed, Vasily returns to their headquarters to report to Danilov. From what he experiences, he concludes that Konig is skilled and one of a kind. Danilov informs him that Konig knows him too well and has been targeting him since he arrived from Berlin. So, Kulikov, a Russian soldier and Konig's former student, will help him take Konig down. Meanwhile, in Konig's room, Sasha is working as a shoe cleaner of Konig. Konig reads a Russian newspaper and sees Vasily's face in it, yet is unable to read the text written. So, he lets Sasha read it aloud, and then he learns what it says. From then on, Konig orders Sasha to work for him in telling information regarding Vasily. 2 days later, Vasily, Kulikov, and Volodya head to the Nazi lair to target the Nazis, including Konig. The Nazis shoot at them, and yet, they manage to survive. Consecutively, they head to a devastating factory to serve their position. Afterward, Vasily shoots the telephone wire of the Nazis. Consequently, the Nazis send a repair guy, but he gets shot by Kulikov instead. Unexpectedly, Volodya gets captured by the Nazis without Vasily and Kulikov's knowledge. They dress him up as a Nazi repairman to trick Kulikov. As expected by the Nazis, Kulikov unknowingly shoots Volodya in the head. Confused, Vasily asks him why the Nazis sent another repairman only to get killed. Yet, Kulikov has no idea as well. Afterward, they relocate to a different part of the devastating factory. Unfortunately, Kulikov gets shot in the head by his former teacher, Konig. Meanwhile, Tanya intercepts Nazi radios and gets visited by Danilov. Tanya persuadingly asks Danilov for her transfer as she desires to be in a battle rather than working there. Danilov dislikes the idea of transferring her. Yet, Tanya asks Vasily's permission instead. Vasily then allows her to join the battle by giving her Kulikov's rifle. After some time, Sasha, working as a double agent, shares information about Vasily with Konig. He details to him where Vasily will exit later on. Convinced, Konig heads straight to the tractor factory Sasha mentions. Ahead at the tractor factory, Konig positions himself behind a louver with a broken slat to make him less visible. As expected of Konig, Vasily and his comrade Sergei crawl through a pipe to the tractor factory. Unaware of Konig's presence, Sergei gets shot in his shoulder while Vasily unintentionally tosses his rifle from a far distance. Vasily orders Sergei to crawl back to the pipe while he deals with Konig alone. Wittingly, Vasily uses a rope with a hook to fasten the rifle's sling. However, as he almost reaches it, Konig shoots the rope and makes it snap into two. Meanwhile, at Soviet headquarters, Danilov stops Tanya from heading toward the battlefield. He believes she's not coming back alive once she sets foot on the battleground. Yet, Tanya stubbornly wants to leave to fight back against the Nazis. Suddenly, wounded Sergei arrives to inform them of Vasily's state. So, Tanya rushes to the tractor factory to assist Vasily. Speedily, Tanya arrives at the tractor factory. Vasily devises a plan with her to trick Konig. He orders Tanya to use a large piece of glass to reflect light toward Konig's sight. As the plan works, Vasily hastily grabs his rifle to shoot at Konig. Konig manages to survive with a minor injury. With that, the Russian soldiers momentarily celebrate in their headquarters. They chant, dance, drink, and smoke cigarettes. Vasily then shares his stories with Tanya and laughs their hearts out. Later on, they make love. After some time, Vasily confronts Danilov. He wants him to stop writing heroic stories about him as Konig knows him well enough to kill him any time. However, Danilov doesn't want to prevent publishing newspapers about him as he is an extraordinary soldier compared to others. After that, Sasha arrives to inform them of Konig's next move. Surprised by Sasha's information, Vasily furiously yells at Danilov for using Sasha behind his back. Yet, in Danilov's defense, Sasha had come on his own accord due to being a big fan of Vasily. Sometime later at night, Vasily positions himself amongst the dead soldiers in the chemical factory. As hours go by, Vasily falls asleep during his mission, and a Nazi looter steals his sniper log. With Vasily's log, the Nazi commander concludes he is dead, thus, sending Konig back to Berlin. However, Konig does not believe Vasily is dead and does not want to leave yet. Afterward, he surrenders his dog tag and his son's merit to the commander so that the Russian soldiers will not benefit from his death if it were to happen. As Konig is permitted to prolong his stay, he meets with Sasha to tell him Vasily is alive and that he will meet him at the train station. Suspicious that Sasha is a double agent, he pretends not to know so he can catch Sasha later in the act. In the train station, Konig awaits Vasily's coming. As expected, Vasily arrives with Tanya, which proves Konig's suspicion towards Sasha. Morning comes, Konig catches Sasha. He hangs him to death, then Tanya and Vasily see it from their binoculars. Tanya weepingly screams and quickly decides to take revenge on Konig. However, Vasily calms her down and vows revenge on Konig himself. After that, Tanya and Danilov quickly head to Mrs. Filipov's house. They persuade Mrs. Filipov to evacuate her house while they hold out on the truth of Sasha's death. Afterward, they bring her to the port to escape. On their way to the boat, Tanya gets hit by shrapnel launched by the Nazi aircraft. Danilov and Mrs. Filipov weep as they see blood all over Tanya's body. Then, Mrs. Filipov cries for help from the military medic to cure Tanya immediately. Yet, the military medic assumes Tanya will no longer survive. Hopeful, Mrs. Filipov convinces him to let Tanya come with her in the boat to escape the battlefield. Believing Tanya's death, Danilov returns to Vasily's post to inform him of Tanya's passing. Speechless, Vasily weeps as he hears the news. Regretfully, Danilov intentionally exposes himself to Konig's sight to help Vasily know Konig's hideout from the direction of the bullet strike. Then, Danilov falls dead from the bullet passing through his head. After a while, Konig leaves his hideout to confirm if Vasily is the one he shot earlier. On his way, he fails to notice Vasily's presence. Vasily furiously aims his rifle at him while he pauses his movement. Consequently, Konig accepts his fate and gets shot right through his head. 2 months later, on February 3, 1943, the Soviets rejoiced as they reclaimed Stalingrad again after the 462-day fight ended. With that, the remaining Nazi invaders are now prisoners of the Russians. The movie ends when Vasily searches for Tanya in a hospital as he believes she's still alive. Luckily, they meet again. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this to help the channel out. Have a nice day.